Oops, sorry. Try that again. Good morning. Welcome to the Bucks County Commissioners meeting for July 20th. We will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you. Okay, we're starting out with a couple of great presentations, and we're going to start. I'll turn it over to our county solicitor, Mr. Khan, if he wants to introduce our first presentation.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner, one of the many traditions that this administration began back at the beginning of 2020 was having new attorneys with the county take an oath of office and having that administered by a judge at the commissioners' meetings. We began that tradition with our assistant county solicitors being sworn in by the Honorable Brian T. McGuffin, Court of Common Pleas Judge, back in January of 2020. And so with that, I am delighted to welcome Judge McGuffin back.
Good morning, everybody. Thanks very much for having me. Commissioners, it's nice to see you.
Make sure you use, I know you're pretty loud, but you still need the
It's
microphone.
nice to see you. All right. Are you going to make some introductory remarks about the candidates?
Sure. If we could ask our newest assistant county solicitors who have joined over the last couple months. So first we have Danielle Pignol-Lavery and Stacy Tepe. If they could come forward with their families, I think are with them today. Your Honor.
It's nice to see you. How are you?
Your Honor, as Ms. Tepe and Ms. Lavery come forward, I'd like to share a few words about these extremely talented attorneys that are joining the county. First, with Danielle. Danielle earned her bachelor's degree from Ramapo College of New Jersey and then received her law degree from the University of North Carolina School of Law. While she was in law school, she had an opportunity to demonstrate her passion for public service, particularly in seeking to protect victims of domestic violence, as well as advancing the cause of disability rights. She interned in the Attorney General's office down in North Carolina, as well as the disability rights, and worked in the domestic violence clinic at UNC. But what has really distinguished Danielle over the course of her legal career has been her capacity to demonstrate an ability to learn new areas of the law. She has served the city of Philadelphia, which is where she's joining us from, in the law department for over 4 years. She began her career there in the child welfare unit, where she advocated for the equivalent of children and youth, the DHS agency in Philadelphia. She then made a sharp turn to practice in a totally new area of municipal tax in the Mass Revenue Litigation Unit, where she was actually promoted to Deputy City Solicitor. She also served as the co-chair of the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee for Philadelphia's Law Department. And outside of work, she's also continued to volunteer for the Lupus Foundation of America for the last 13 years. She is accompanied by her husband, Michael Lavery, as well as her 2 daughters, Mackenzie and Eliza.
Excellent. Would you like to do the swearings in individually?
Whatever Your Honor's preference would be.
All right. And do you have the oath of office and the Bible? I apologize that I came across the street. Do we happen to have a Bible at the witness stand?
We couldn't find one in your building.
I have my own Bible. I should have brought it. I just came
That's
directly
okay.
from a sentence. I apologize.
Is there one in that drawer? Check the drawer.
Or the Constitution.
I think Your Honor, we'll have a Bible here by the time we do the oath if we
All
continue
right.
with the introduction.
Why don't we move on to the next,
He's got one. So,
if you like, we can move on to the next commentary, and then we'll take it from there.
thank you, Your Honor. Our next.
If you could schedule these in cooler weather, I would appreciate that, too.
Stacy Tepe is a dedicated advocate for children. She's been with the county, I think we're actually in her second month now, where she has focused her practice here advocating for the Children and Youth Agency. She has worked in a wide variety of roles in this space for nearly 15 years. She received her bachelor degree from Indiana University, where she worked for the Department of Child Services as a family case manager, and then she went on to work for Kids Peace National Centers as a family consultant supervisor while pursuing a master's degree in criminal justice, and then went on to law school, where she was in such a hurry to continue doing this work as an attorney. She finished law school in 2 years at Drexel's Klein School of Law. During that time, she expanded her child-centered expertise, first as a CASA volunteer supervisor and then an adoption supervisor. After law school, she served as a child advocate attorney for 4 years with the Defender Association of Philadelphia in their child advocacy unit, which is somewhat equivalent to our guardian ad litem office here in Bucks County. Stacy is trained to forensically interview abused and neglected children through Child First and the Corner House Forensic Interview Protocol. These skills and experience make Stacy an incredibly well-rounded attorney and demonstrate her commitment to keeping children safe and in loving homes. Outside of work, she has performed, produced, edited, and mastered 6 albums, which are for sale on iTunes and Amazon. So with that, Your Honor, I think we are now ready for the oaths when Your Honor is prepared.
I congratulate you on your diligent search for such fine candidates, and I want to congratulate both of you for your commitment to public service. Serving the county in your roles as lawyers is an incredibly worthwhile endeavor, and I wish you well in your experiences. All right, and I think we will swear you in individually. Would you like to start? And if you'll come forward, and where do you want me to stand? Would you like to hold the Bible, sir?
If you can, Judge, if you can, maybe get as close to the podium as possible, just because of the microphone, or not.
I'll stand here if people want to see you too. If you'll put your left hand on the Bible, raise your right hand. I, and then you have to state your name.
I, Stacy Tucker,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support, obey, and defend
that I will support, obey, and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of this Commonwealth,
and the Constitution of this Commonwealth,
and that I will discharge the duties
and that I will discharge the duties
of my office
of my office
with fidelity.
with fidelity.
Congratulations, you have sworn in.
Thank you.
These two beautiful young women and their husband on camera. Sir, would you like to hold the Bible? If you would put your left hand on the Bible and raise your right hand once, please. I, and you have to say your name. Do solemnly swear that I will support, obey, and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of this Commonwealth, and that I will discharge the duties of my office with fidelity. Congratulations, Mr. I'll return the Bible. Left of a Bible is mortal sin. Mr. Solicitor, may I return to my duties across the street?
You're excused, Your Honor. And
Thank you very much. It's so nice to see everybody.
Thank you, Your
Thanks
Honor.
very much for inviting me.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Congratulations and best wishes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We know how busy you are, Your Honor. We really appreciate it. I think I may have forgotten to mention Stacy's husband is here, Michael. Excuse me, Stephen is Stacy's husband. Michael is Danielle. So Stephen Muller, welcome and thank you, and congratulations to our new attorneys.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you being here.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. We are going to introduce something that is, I think, probably overdue. The county park system, of course, is there to benefit the physical and mental health of all our residents and people from other counties and states who want to come here. In order to make sure that we can maximize that health, we want to, we're going to be passing, updating our park and rec ordinance pretty soon to designate areas as young lungs at play. which will essentially be no smoking areas specifically around things like playgrounds and other locations where children are playing. This is something that is being done and has been done all over the country. And so today, I want to just ask for two people here to speak about this, Melanie Swanson and Howard Pajersky. You have to come forward and talk a little bit about what we're doing here.
Well, good morning. Thank you very much for inviting us. And this is more than a good morning. This is a very special good morning. I think we would all agree that there are a few things more important to a community than protecting the health and the welfare of our kids. And not only protecting their health and welfare, but helping them thrive. Because we know that when kids thrive, schools, families, communities thrive. Bucks County has always prioritized the well-being of our children. We do it in our schools, we do it in our parks, we do it throughout the county. Nowhere is this vision more visible than in our county parks, than to promote this health and well-being. Slide. And good news, funding is provided by the Pennsylvania Department of Health in the tobacco, the Health Promotion Council, right, Melanie? Too many organizations that we deal with. And just a quick little story about Young Lungs at Play. A few months ago, I was with one of my granddaughters, 6 on my ag, from 4 to 16, and we were in a park in another county, and we were approaching the playground area, and as I often do, I was talking to myself. I go, oh, a Young Lungs at Play sign. And she looks at me and says, Grandpa, what's that about? I said, that's a very special thing here that people have put here because they care about you, they want you to be safe, and they want you to have a good time. She says, well, we got to come back here every day now. So that's where we see the vision in these signs. This ordinance is not about what we can't do. It's about what we can do to help kids thrive. And you'll see that in one of our survey. Actually, a lot of the people in the county kind of agree with that. In any case, so Melanie, why don't you go into a little more detail about the program? And
Good morning. My name is Melanie Swanson, and I am a prevention specialist at the Council of Southeast Pennsylvania, and I'm also the project coordinator for Neshaminy Coalition for Youth. And we got started with this program a number of years ago, and I am just so excited and so proud that Bucks County has adopted county-free, tobacco-free county parks. So next slide, please. Howard reviewed most of this information. But again, this project is really about protecting the health and welfare of children and also about projecting a positive image of our parks to park goers in the community. So next slide, I'm gonna talk a little bit, very briefly, about why Young Lungs at Play is so important. Again, this is about our young lungs, the delicate development of young children's lungs, and healthy play spaces for them. So we know that communities really do have a responsibility to protect our young people and their health and welfare and to promote healthy youth development. And Young Lungs at Play does that by ensuring that children are breathing clean air, that there isn't litter on the ground. Unfortunately, tobacco litter, such as cigarette butts, is actually one of the most littered items in the world. It doesn't biodegrade. The same thing with now we see the vaping pods. We see plastic pods, any of the plastic containers, and there are plastics in cigarette butts as well. None of that is biodegradable. So it's healthier for the environment. We don't risk having children accidentally ingest or pick up cigarette butts, vaping pods or cartridges, from the e-cigarettes. This is eliminating that. It's helping to protect our pets as well. Pets will often pick up things on the ground. And the other concern, of course, is cigarette butts that might be burning, and children burning themselves on that. And nicotine is actually poisonous to children, especially in larger amounts, so we're also reducing that risk. Secondhand smoke, as we know, is dangerous. It is a Class A carcinogen. We have about 50,000 deaths a year because of secondhand smoke. And we also know that secondhand vape or aerosol is also dangerous because there are carcinogens in the aerosol. Again, it's not water vapor, it's aerosol. And if we can protect our children from inhaling that when they're doing healthy activities, then we're that much further along. Also, the main message here, I think, is that our community cares about the health and welfare of our children, and we do. So we're really excited about this. Next slide, please. So the other reason that we were promoting Young Lungs at Play and why it's being adopted here in Bucks is because we have community support for it. We actually did a survey in Core Creek Park last year, and the overwhelming majority of park goers said, yes, they support smoke-free and tobacco-free zones for children, areas where children play. So again, we thank you. We're very grateful to the commissioners and Bucks County Parks and Recreation Board for adopting this. Just next slide, please, just really quickly to review again. This program and this project will help eliminate some of those health risks to children that I mentioned before. We're gonna help eliminate pets and children picking up the items on the ground. We're gonna help reduce litter in our parks. We're going to help prevent the renormalization of tobacco use. We actually, about 82% of the population does not smoke anymore, thanks to a lot of the efforts that have happened over the years. And so we want to really protect our youth from initiating that. And when they see people doing healthy behaviors in parks, they imitate that. So if they see smoking or if they see vaping, they're likely to think, oh, it's healthy. This is a healthy activity. We're also vaping, we're also smoking. It's okay for me to do that. The Young Lungs at Play sends a message that, no, we care about your health and we want to make sure that you're doing healthy activities and staying as healthy as possible. And lastly, parks are really about clean air, about healthy activities, about being outdoor spaces, and that's what this is all about. So next slide, please. So what you're going to see actually in the county now, first of all, let me just share these signs are going to be going up. The Young Lungs at Play signs, one's in English. We also have them available in Spanish language. And it's a very gentle message, Young Lungs at Play, basically sending the message that our children are playing. Let's make sure we keep our environment, our parks healthy and safe for them. So we're going to see these signs popping up, and these are the areas that will be impacted in Bucks County. We have 12 playgrounds, 12 athletic fields, 2 tennis courts, 2 pools, 2 boat rentals, 1 golf course, 1 disc golf course, and 4 basketball courts. So all of them will be impacted by this program. Next slide, please. And again, these are the signs that we're going to see. These are free resources available. This is funded through the Department of Health, Health Promotion Council. It's through Master Settlement Agreement money, so there's no taxpayer dollars involved. So we are very, very excited to have these. You're going to see the signs pop up. And again, it's just going to send that message that, you know what, we care about our communities and our children here in Bucks, and we're doing something about it. So next slide. So again, I want to thank you, the Bucks County Commissioners, for recognizing this important initiative and enacting it here in Bucks County, and for caring about the health and welfare of our youth and promoting healthy youth development, healthy communities. Thank you very much for that. Thank you to Bucks County Parks and Recreation for also acknowledging that and working hard to get this done. So we're very grateful for that. Also, Bucks County will now be recognized on the Pennsylvania Department of Health Honor Roll. So we will be on the honor roll now for adopting this program. So thank you again. Next slide, it's just really our contact information. We really appreciate all your efforts and all that you do to help protect our youth here in Bucks County and what you do to help youth thrive. So thank you very much on behalf of Neshaminy Coalition for Youth and the Council of Southeast Pennsylvania and all of our partners. We thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah. Just a minute. Just to talk, we also have a proclamation for you, which I'll read here. Whereas more than 858,000 young people are exposed to tobacco smoke pollution every day in Pennsylvania. And whereas according to the U.S. Surgeon General, there's no safe level of smoke exposure, whether indoors or outdoors, including of secondhand smoke, which is responsible for more than 50,000 deaths among non-smokers each year. Whereas each day, an estimated 3,900 young people under the age of 18 try their first cigarette, and 1/3 of these children will die prematurely from tobacco-related illnesses. Whereas Young Lungs at Play is a statewide initiative aimed at reducing youth and community members' exposure to secondhand smoke and tobacco-related litter and providing clean and healthy areas to play and exercise. And whereas the Bucks County Solicitor's Office and Bucks County Park and Recreation Department are proud to partner with Young Lungs at Play to rewrite and improve Ordinance 95, Bucks County Park System rules and regulations. Whereas we intend to follow the recommendations of Young Lungs at Play to ensure a smoke-free environment for children, youth, and families, and help model non-smoking behavior throughout our parks and recreation sites. Now, therefore, do we, the Bucks County Board of Commissioners, hereby proclaim July 2022 as Young Lungs at Play Awareness Month. In doing so, we commend Young Lungs at Play program and encourage Bucks Countyans to respect the tobacco-free zones at parks, playgrounds, and recreational fields. So I'm going to ask you to come forward and present this to you. We'll take a picture. Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate you being here. Thank you. Mr. Weintraub, did you have a comment? Wait, I don't think it's on.
There you go.
There you go.
First, I want to commend the county. I think that's a great program. That's a very smart way to help protect our kids in a pretty easy way. But I have a technical question and then a suggestion. Is this to be enforced by the park rangers or by the local police? And if it is the local police, I would just have one request, and that is that you disseminate the policy and the enforcement powers to the 39 or so police agencies.
I can speak to that. I think it's a great question. I think today's proclamation was about what the county plans to do moving forward as in terms of enforcement. I think that that's something that's best addressed through county ordinance, and Commissioner Harvey has asked our department to work with the Parks Department on looking at amendments and updates to Ordinance 95, which is the original County Parks and Recreation Ordinance. So I think we will probably be able to report back and present something for the public by the end of the summer, early fall. And I think at that point, that would speak to direct enforcement capabilities. At this point, this is simply something that the department is going to roll out on a voluntary basis.
Yeah. So, thank you. It's been something that's been worked on. I appreciate Angie Nagel, our Director of Park and Rec, pushing for this and getting this off the ground. So, okay, so go ahead. Yes.
I would suggest not putting those signs up until an ordinance is in place, because 35 years, we've seen what happens. People are going to start to call the police, and they're going to get there with no enforcement ability, and everybody's going to look silly.
Okay. All right. Thank you. All right. Next on our agenda, we want to have the Bucks County Audubon Society. We have Mary Jo Mays here to talk about the Bio Blitz.
So I have some pretty low-tech things today. I have a booklet and a bird. This is a ruffed grouse, which is the Pennsylvania state bird. We've had him for quite some time.
Just make sure you're with the microphone. Sorry, just want to make sure you're at the microphone.
We've had him for quite some time, and he's a little shop-worn, but I thought it would be interesting for everyone to see our state bird in, I think that's thumping mode, where they pound the ground. It's part of a ritual, I think, that they do for me. So, thank you very much for inviting me today. We're excited to talk about Bucks County Audubon Society, in particular the Bio Blitz, which I will get to after I make a few introductory remarks. We have been in existence since 1969. We do more than birds. Even though I brought my friend, I wanted to make sure that everyone understood that we do advocacy, we do education, we do projects. We also have something interesting. We have a horticulture therapy program for adults with autism. So I think that we could all agree that environmental awareness has never been more important with the impacts of climate change being felt from, Texas to Bucks County to Europe. So we are currently engaged in a project, and this is my other prop, in a project where we are conducting an inventory, updating a 50-year-old document that is looked at all the flora, fauna, bugs, birds, animals that were on the Bucks County Audubon Society property in the midst of the Honey Hollow watershed. And this document was, a labor of love, data collection about who lives in our environment. And what we're doing now is we're conducting this study to update this 50-year-old document to take a look at what changes have taken place, what things have occurred, what changes in the flora and fauna. And it's a wonderful opportunity to share information about this microcosm of the Honey Hollow watershed, but also what that means for the county, for the state, and actually kind of giving a view of all of the things that have happened in the past 50 years in terms of impacts on the environment. Our goal is to complete this project by the end of the year, and then we will be publishing the updated report probably at some time in the middle of 2023. I don't have exact dates. But one of the things that we're doing to invite everyone, our trails are open 7 days a week, dawn to dusk, but we would also like people to come to our site in Solebury this weekend to participate in some of the data collection and to learn about what this project is all about, to look at bugs, to look at birds, to look at the flora and fauna. And so that we'll be conducting some of the programs will be including an evening walk on Friday night, the 22nd, and Saturday and possibly Sunday. We're kind of leaving Sunday for possible rain date, and also if we're finding that we're having so much enthusiasm about some of the programs, we can offer more things on Sunday. So that's basically what I wanted to talk to you about today, and to invite everyone to come to the Nature Center on Creamery Road in Solebury and enjoy an opportunity to meet with experts in a variety of fields and go for walks, enjoy nature, learn something about the natural world, and hopefully take away an appreciation of why it's important that we preserve the things that make Bucks County great, and also make all of our communities great in terms of protecting the natural world. So thank you very much. I really appreciate the opportunity to come and to bring my grouse friend. And does anyone have any questions?
Just the one thing, Ms. May, just 2 days ago, maybe, I think there was national news about statistics that came out about the temperature changes over the past 50 years, and them accelerating much faster than scientists predicted they would. I know you had mentioned to me this morning about some statistics you have about 50 years ago.
Again, these aren't official results, but we looked at the NOAA information from 1972 all the way till now, and the average temperature has increased actually more than what seems to be national and international average. It looks like the temperatures have increased 4 degrees. And when you think about it, 4 degrees is a lot. And it has a major impact on the survival of plants, animals, insects that are really crucial to the environment here. So again, that's not official, it hasn't been published yet, but those are some of the things that we're finding. So it's important. And I think because we're an organization that also promotes advocacy, I think the more people understand the impacts of climate change, and even locally, what those impacts are, and we're also going to help people to figure out how to take action.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Excuse me. Okay, so public comment. Just waiting for the screen to refresh. There we go. Okay. First name on the list is, sorry. Oh, Amy McGarren.
All right, good morning. My name is Amy McGarren. I'm from Doylestown Township. I'm speaking in reference to agenda items 4, Children and Youth, 6, District Attorney, 10, Housing and Community Development, 12, Human Services, 14, Juvenile Probation, 19, Youth Center. I would like to thank the commissioners for their dedication and action in reference to the Opioid Settlement Fund and the establishment of the Advisory Committee. I would especially like to thank Commissioner Harvey for his quick and transparent response to my questions and concerns about the makeup of the Advisory Committee, and to quickly adding a grieving mother to the committee after my concern that there were no parent survivors of the opioid crisis on the committee. The Advisory Committee is chaired by Diane Rosati, Executive Director of Bucks County Drug and Alcohol. The Advisory Committee will be responsible for reviewing and making recommendations on applications for funding. The committee will receive input from members of the public and provide recommendations and feedback to the chair on a regular basis throughout each year the committee is in existence. I appreciate that Diane Rosati and the committee held 2 community meetings to hear comments from the general public. Several of the speakers had lost a child or other loved one to substance use disorder overdose. The speakers at this meeting were all knowledgeable and passionate about ways to remediate the opioid crisis. I am asking you today to have open minds and open hearts as you decide on the use of these funds in our community. I ask that you be open to new ideas and approaches. Don't get stuck in "this is how we've always done it" or stigma-based policies that create barriers to entry. I ask that you provide focus on co-occurring conditions and consider approaches like Encompass that focuses on the intersection of mental illness and substance use in teenagers and young adults. I ask that you consider harm reduction approaches that meet people where they are and saves lives. I ask that you consider ways to make medication-assisted treatment more accessible and to fight the stigma surrounding the most effective approach to opioid addiction. I ask that you investigate using technology like sequential intercept mapping, where leaders, agencies, and systems work together to identify strategies to divert people with mental and substance use disorders away from the justice system into treatment, or overdose detection mapping that helps to mobilize emergency responses. I don't have the answers, but I ask that we work together to ask questions, keep an open mind, and strive for better outcomes. I dare say that everyone in this room has been affected by mental health conditions and/or substance use disorder. If it hasn't touched your family or friends yet, sadly, I expect it will. I'm going to use the remainder of my time to read an excerpt from a New York Times article from June 24th, 2022, titled, "Experts Say We Have the Tools to Fight Addiction, So Why Are More Americans Overdosing Than Ever?" This article discusses co-occurring conditions of mental health and substance use disorder and treating mental health, substance use, and physical health as a whole. From the article, "We have been begging for 21 years for these systems to integrate and coordinate more," said Paige Pierce, a parent advocate and CEO of the nonprofit Families Together. "Opponents keep insisting that a merger will not work, but what we have right now is really not working, and it's not been working for decades. The federal government seems ready to acknowledge that too. This spring, the Office of National Drug Control Policy unveiled a new whole-of-government approach to beat the overdose epidemic. The National Drug Control Strategy, as it's called, includes billions in funding for evidence-based treatment initiatives, a renewed commitment to combating drug traffickers, and a plan to make better use of data to guide all these efforts. Those are welcome developments, but for broader effect to succeed, officials at every level will have to grapple with a roster of deeper flaws in the nation's approach to addiction. Laws will have to change. Some drug war-era statutes need to be repealed. Others, including those that focus on equal insurance coverage for behavioral health conditions, need to be better enforced. Agencies will have to be restructured so that false distinctions between addiction, mental health, and the rest of medicine are finally fully erased." Thank you.
All right, thank you, appreciate the comments.
Can I give you a copy of the article?
Certainly, yep. Thank you. Julie Kimmel?
Good morning. My name is Julie Kimmel, and I'm a resident in Doylestown. I would like to speak to Agenda Item 12C regarding providing funding to Nami in their current efforts to recruit and retain staff. I wanted to share that I have seen firsthand the incredible work that Nami does to support individuals who are struggling with mental illness and also their family and friends. On more than one occasion, Nami has been a lifeline when I have witnessed someone experiencing the sudden onset of a mental health crisis, whether that is the young colleague I know in her 20s who began to experience schizophrenia and was terrified, or others who have experienced different kinds of health crises. Knowing that I can refer people to Nami, that they will answer the phone, they will refer them to the experts that they need to see and get them in right away to be with groups and to learn about how to deal with the terrifying experience that they're having, makes me feel safe and good about the world that I live in. So when I see that Nami is needing some support in their efforts to recruit and retain staff, and that our county commissioners are considering providing that support, I want to encourage you to do so. When an organization is getting it right, a nonprofit that doesn't profit from any of the work that they do, and providing support we know that is effective for individuals and for their families, it is a wise use of funds to provide them with the support that they need. I realize this is only part of a larger effort to support those in our community who find themselves struggling with various diseases related to mental health. But I want to thank the commissioners for considering this funding and encourage you to provide this funding. Thank you for the work that you do to make our community a good place.
Thank you. Andy Warren?
Morning, Commissioners. Couple quick things. following up on the Audubon Society presentation, there's a great app that my wife discovered recently called Merlin, and you put it on your phone, Merlin, free. You go out in your backyard and it'll tell you, identify every single bird that's in your backyard by the song, etc. It's kind of neat. She likes it. I can't do it, but anyway. And also, I'm signed up for the end of the one too, just so. Item number 7. I know that the Board of Elections received a less than desirable letter recently, but my question about number 7 is what's the source of the money for this program? And I am assuming we're talking like hazmat suits, or who they're going to be for, how many are we going to buy, and if there's for a nuclear disaster, what do you know that I don't know that I ought to know? That's a question, but basically, how many are we getting, what are they, and who's going to use them? Item number 12. The 3 sign-on retention items today add up to $2.2 million, A, B, and C. A month ago, June 20th, we had $4.8 million invested in sign-ons and retention. So my question is, with this $7 million in the last month, is anyone tracking the number of employees that were on board that before the sign-on bonuses, and now how many have we attracted with this $7 million? How's that being tracked? And item number D, in that same one, we're talking about part-time employees, and I'm asking because I don't know, but are part-time employees get benefits?
Bless you.
Because, bless you, that's number 12, funding for salary and benefits for part-time forensic nurses. I just didn't know any answer. So those are my questions. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, Edward Mackhouse.
Hello, I'm Ed Mackhouse from Buckingham and Furlong. I'm a former teacher and former scientist. I discovered the structure of matter in 1970. I'm the only one that has a quantitative model of the electron, proton, and neutron, basic things to make up matter, and they spend 50 billions of dollars trying to discover what I've already discovered. So the purpose of science should be discovering new things and should not be to make the government more powerful. And the government shouldn't control everything. My item is number 10 about health. I looked on the website about the health department last night, and it said something about vaccinating people.
I think you mean 9, right? Correct? Item 9 is the health department.
It says 9 health department, right?
Yes, okay, you
That's
said
the
10. All right,
item.
so 9.
Item 9. Because I looked at the website last night, it said about vaccinating people. So I, as a scientist, the burden of proof, when someone injects something into you, the burden of proof is on that person that they should be able to convince you that it's better in your benefit. Like the polio vaccine, people believe that's good. Smallpox is evidence that you get the vaccine stopped smallpox. There's no evidence that this is a vaccine, that this stopped people from getting the virus. If you listen to all the propaganda, I'm a scientist, I believe in the facts. The burden of proof is on the Fauci, these people that are promoting this. They have no right to mandate that I take the vaccine. I'm 78 years old. I've never taken any of the vaccines. I haven't had any of these symptoms, this virus or anything, and I'm perfectly, physically, medically, helpfully, not completely physically, but this is a crap, and this is a violation. This health department regulation should be based. There's better things through chemistry. General Electric, there's a lot of things you can do, but I don't know anyone that can tell what the effect of a vaccine is on a particular person. That's a statistical matter. We cannot scientifically figure out that. It's like in physics, there's 2 body problems, but more than that, 3 body problems, more than 6 chemicals. It's pretty much impossible to tell the effect of that particular person. So this should be completely on the choice of the person. Mandatory thing is a criminal act. The big pharmacies, as immunity, they don't get any prosecution for killing people. I talked to one person on a bus next to me when I was campaigning for a great man, Mastriano, and Dr. Oz campaigning for Mastriano. She told me that 3 of her close friends were killed by the vaccine. So, according to all these statistics, there's liars, damn liars in statistics. How could 3 of her friends be killed by the vaccine? And my thing is, my family, I'm a contamination. I could contaminate them because I'm not vaccinated. So I've been ejected from things because I might contaminate them. If you believe in the germ theory, you have to have germ. You have to be infectious to infect anything. I don't have any of these germs. I can't infect them. How can they brainwash people to think that you can come up with a mask or some mandatory vaccine to cure people from everything? They're injecting vaccines in animals. Before, they were giving antibiotics to animals to make them grow faster, more profitable. The question is profits versus the health and safety of our people. We're talking people about environment, different factors. And the Falun Gong, 100 million people in China, they were all healthy. And they sell these healthy organs of these people in China to people who are sick because they don't take proper care of themselves. In America, they have the money. So 100 million people, because of government control and power, they don't want independent organizations to make people healthy. If you're healthy, you can think. It's easier to control sick people who are dependent on you for food, like in the communist countries. They cut off all the food supply. They raise the gasoline prices to suppress the people. The inflation is progressive people progressively making crime, everything worse, for more and more government control. We have to government by the people, for the people, of the people, for life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Too much government power. Power should be by the people, for the people, of the people. January 6th committee is a crime, and putting innocent people in jail because they want free and fair elections. So please do your duty and make the health for the health of the people, not for the health of the corrupt government people.
Lori Katz.
Good morning, everybody. I am new to this process, and I was going over the agenda last night, and I was pretty confused because I felt like there were a lot of blanks, and I didn't know where to start to ask questions about. And being that I have 4 minutes and 42 seconds, I'm not sure how I could get through 20 agenda items. So I'm here, I'm asking, where can I be directed to find more information? It just seems, for lack of a better word, pretty anemic to me. Being a tax-paying citizen, I feel like I should have the right to more information and, I guess, more direction, more transparency here. Not insinuating anything, but just asking an honest question. And I just picked some different agenda items that just seem lacking to me. My first one that I looked at was agenda item 4J. I saw approved contract amendment to increase funding for mobile drug testing and decrease funding for the Family Strengthening Program. Family Strengthening Program to me sounds like a good name. Why would we be decreasing when community is so important? And strengthening the family is very important. I also looked at agenda item number 9, A, being that it surrounds health, I wanted to know, ratify revised rules and regulations. What are these rules and regulations that are being ratified? Who's determining this? I thought that's kind of important with our current state of health affairs. Agenda item 18A caught my eye as well. Approve contract to provide workforce-specific research, data, and reporting capabilities. What are we collecting? Why do we need this information? For what is the purpose? Is this something that's tied to CareerLink? I'm not quite sure. I also noticed on these agendas, there are some asterisks, and there was no place to find why the money has asterisks next to it. Where's the money coming from? I'm not sure. You know, I see sometimes the county is paying 100%, sometimes they're paying 0%. Sometimes I find where the money is coming from. Do we have to spend the money? If we don't spend the money, where does it go? I just have all these questions. I'm wondering, is there a town hall that you guys can provide so citizens can come and ask questions and we can have dialogue rather than me just speaking and then waiting to the end for comments? I'm just a citizen who'd like to find out more about what's going on in my county. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Meg Brock?
My name is Megan Brock. I'm going to be commenting on item D22, which talks about the Bucks County Health Improvement Partnership. I saw there's $2,500 being given to them. I'm not really sure what that was for, but I just wanted to talk about the Bucks County Health Improvement Project Partnership. I think a lot of people in Bucks County probably don't really know what it is. It's a group in Bucks County with the health department, leaders from local hospitals, leaders, educational leaders like Mark Hoffman are all on the board. And my understanding is that they work together to try and improve the health of Bucks County. Now, why I'm bringing this up, I have an email that was obtained through Right to Know, written on August 17th from one of the board members of BCHIP. It's called BCHIP for short. It says, I am on a meeting with Bucks County Health Improvement Partnership. We are discussing COVID cases in pediatrics and bed availability across the region. Would you be able to share with me the following on Tuesday and Friday timeframe and ask for some data? There is concerns regarding the availability of beds. CHOP is stating overcapacity. There is concerns because it's limited PEDS availability in Bucks County. And I bring that up because I know on August 17, 2021, Bucks County issued a statement saying that they were going to support the recommendations of local hospitals because they were to recommend masks for schools because there was concerns about bed capacity. And I think it's important to make this distinction because then the guidance wasn't officially changed then, but it was officially changed on August 23rd. This was noted in a piece that was written in the National Review, did a really great job kind of separating those two things. And the reporter says that he actually asked the commissioners, asked Mr. Nagy for clarification on why the August 23rd guidance was changed. And he didn't get a response. At least that's what he printed in the piece. Now I bring this up because I know it's been asked multiple times about the August 23rd guidance, and I don't think anyone's really explicitly answered that. I've heard Commissioner Harvey say, oh, the masking guidance was changed because of hospitals, but I want to make the distinction that what happened on August 17th with the hospitals was not what happened on August 23rd when the Secretary of Health wrote a letter to the commissioners asking they change the health and safety guidance. They're two different events, and I've never heard anyone answer the two events. I wanted to add that most of my, last meeting it was brought up the number of right to know requests I've done in my appeals. I wanted to add that most of my right to know requests have been about the August 23rd guidance. There's also been several where I had to try and find out why the county blocked my phone number, because that also has happened. So I was trying to find out the circumstances around why my phone number was blocked for 18 months. With my appeals, I wanted to make a note that I had 16 appeals against Bucks County. Of those 16 appeals, I've only lost 2. So that means that the Office of Open Records has agreed with me 6 times, They didn't agree with me 2 times, and 8 of those appeals were dismissed as untimely. And this is really important. I wanted to try and explain this because a lot of people probably don't know how the open records process works. When you as a requester submit a request, the agency then has 5 business days to respond to your request, or it's deemed denied. What typically happens is they'll ask, if they can't produce the records, they'll ask for a 30-day extension. If they don't produce the records within 30 days, they're deemed denied. Now, for the 8 untimely requests, I have never had an untimely request with any other agency, and I've filed appeals from multiple agencies across the state. What happened, I looked back through, and every single one, the Bucks County Law Department asked for a 60-day extension. So what happened was, because I actually do, we talk about trusting the government, I in good faith trusted that if they were asking for the 60-day extension, that I would still have the right to appeal. But what happened is, and you have to understand, I'm not a lawyer, I'm a mom. I knew nothing about right to know request or right to know law a year and a half ago. The Bucks County Law Department has an entire legal team trained to know the law. So I have to assume that they understood when they asked for the 60-day extension that that was going to time out my appeals. So when I filed the appeal, because I granted them the extension in good faith that they asked for, I had all of those appeals dismissed as untimely. And that the officer who was doing those communications is no longer employed by the county. So this just brings me to my final point or question, is I know the commissioners have been very vocal about calling me a conspiracy theorist. My first question is, what conspiracy are you accusing me of? Because I don't really understand. Asking for public records isn't a conspiracy. Asking questions, it's not a conspiracy. I just want to know what happened. And my other comment is, since calling me a conspiracy theorist seems to roll off the tongue, can you please state right here in this meeting, Dr. Damsker wrote the August 23rd school guidance, not the masking guidance that happened on August 17th. Dr. Damsker wrote the August 23rd school guidance. Can you please just say that right now? Because I think that would help the community. Thank you.
Vanna Darmond?
Good morning, Vanna Darmond, Plumstead. A couple things from the agenda. The first one was that Young Lungs at Play, which I think is certainly great. But I don't want you all to forget that you closed parks during COVID, even though there was no evidence that COVID was spread outside. And then you still had to wear masks outside. I'll never forget in May, the first time I wanted to take my kids to a park or to a playground, how I told my husband, I hope I don't get arrested for taking the kids out to play. I'm not really sure about that. So, we're thinking about cigarettes and smoke, and we know how bad that is for lungs. Don't forget that people who were raising the alarm on that back in the 70s were called conspiracy theorists and were told that, no, that's not right. And cigarette companies said, no, this is good. Doctors recommend smoking. So I feel like it kind of ties into what we talk about here, especially when we get called conspiracy theorists. Also, along with that Young Lungs at Play, I'm wondering about your spraying policies. I do know you spray for mosquitoes. Now, I know that you have to take care of county parks, and then the local municipalities have to take care of their own parks. But I do want you to consider when you're talking about Young Lungs at Play, those sprays are really important as well. I myself had an asthma attack because of one of the mosquito sprays that you guys did. It was really difficult for me. I have to leave my home when that's gonna happen. So think about that. The other agenda item, the approval for minutes. This is 5A from July 6th. So you have no agenda minutes available to the public for us to view, right? The draft minutes, there's none that I can see or that are available, yet you guys are gonna vote on these. So what I want to know is, one, why aren't there draft minutes available so that if we, the public, have a question, since you're gonna be voting on it, that we could raise that question during this public comment. I also wonder that in the minutes, whether it's going to be, I'm not sure how you capture the comments, but at the end of the meeting last time, Mr. Harvey made some comments, and Mr. Kanye made comments during the meeting. Mr. Harvey, I'll say I felt your comments were offensive. We have been called conspiracy theorists. We have been called extremists. We were patronized with prepared stats about starving children and how we should be spending our time doing other things than coming here and using our First Amendment rights. This is called gaslighting. It's an emotional abuse technique. Let's talk about mental health. All right, so emotional abuse, gaslighting. The gaslighter tries to consciously or not to induce in someone the sense that her reactions, perceptions, memories, or beliefs are not just mistaken, but utterly without grounds, paradigmatically so unfounded as to qualify as crazy. Gaslighting is a control technique that leaves its victim in a fog of altered reality in which they question their own perceptions or memories. By creating chaos, gaslighters hold all the power in the relationship as their victims become increasingly oppressed. They often use triangulation, which involves speaking through other people rather than directly, and splitting, which involves driving a wedge between people. Manipulative gaslighting is further described as an act of sidestepping evidence, supporting the victim's testimony, and labeling the victims as psychologically or cognitively impaired. And how do you respond to gaslighters? You listen to your gut. If you feel that something isn't right in your relationship, you don't ignore your intuition. You're not ashamed. I'm not ashamed to come here and speak and share my concerns. And I don't think anybody should, and I'm not going to feel ashamed for that. For another one, don't second guess your feelings and your intellect. If you feel a certain way and you believe it to be true, don't allow someone to discredit you. And check in with others. As you are being drawn into the gaslighter's manipulative process, the insight of others will help you to see the reality of the situation. Not only do we have the insight of others, we have emails. Okay? So the first time I ever came here to speak was a meeting back last year regarding this August 23rd guidance that I suspected was all political, and it turns out that it is all political. We were proved right through that. We're not conspiracy theorists in that. You're now trying to continue to deny Ms. Brock and Ms. Walker their emails, and I have a question about that. I'm gonna run out of time, so I'll save that question for the end. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you. A couple just to go over some of the comments. With Mr. Warren's question, item 7 addressed the emergency management, the software, or safeware, excuse me. Ms. Kenny, want to speak about that?
Okay. That is being purchased with Homeland Security funding. We have a team that's 82 police officers who provide support in scene security and large-scale incidents. They are outfitted with the appropriate PPE so they can safely respond in on any number of incidents. What we have is dated. It's out of code, and so it was time for us to make a refresh on that.
Okay, thank you. And the reference to any kind of radioactive needing to reply to any kind of radioactive thing, obviously we don't have a power plant here in Bucks County, but.
Right, they provide regional support too, so if there was an incident at Limerick or some other site similar to that, they could use that equipment to safely respond in.
All right, thank you, appreciate that. These are, no, they're not just from all over the county.
Right, 82 officers from various police departments throughout the county, including our sheriff's office too.
Okay. Question was about item 12, which was regards to retention and sign-on bonuses. Yeah, every nonprofit that requested funding had to provide statistics about their current employees, and their normal work staff. If they're down employees, how many are they down compared to normal? And everything has to be reported back to us because we have to report it. Eventually, going forward, we have to report everything to the federal government. So.
That's public.
I'm not sure if it's, eventually the reporting, the feds are public.
Right, the federal government will be reporting it out through their ARPA program, American Rescue Act Plan.
And in terms of 12D, the Network of Victims Assistance, the salary and benefits for part-time forensic. Ms. Neff, can you speak about that, please?
Yes, for Nova's project proposal, there is part-time salary and fringe for those employees included.
Okay. And also, if you just hold the microphone for a second, Ms. Neff, I'm going to ask you to comment. Ms. Katz asked about 4J, which is the council for why, obviously increasing one, but decreasing the family strengthening program.
Sure. So our Children and Youth Department works with about 2,500 families each month, and one of the number one reasons for referrals to Children and Youth is around substance use disorder with parents. So one of the responsibilities that our staff need to do is to ensure that there is drug testing done with parents, and so one of the providers that provides that is the Council of Southeastern PA. And again, during the course of the year, the Children and Youth staff look at where we're at with various expenditures for the Family Strengthening Program, we were able to decrease some of the funding for that and then make up for it so that we could provide additional services for the drug testing.
Okay, thank you. So I think, excuse me, we're not yelling from the crowd. So yeah, the basic answer is that the staff monitor throughout the year the expenditures. If one program isn't being used enough and there's enough budget money in there to move to another program that is being used more than we thought, then that money is shifted so that we can make sure that we're meeting the needs as they're being presented to us.
Just to be clear, if in October there was an increase of requests for family strengthening, you could then change that money back.
Yes, and I just want to share that the Children and Youth is having their needs-based budget hearing on August 3rd, and that's an open forum. The public is invited to attend. It's run by Marge McEwen, the director, and it is an opportunity for the community and provider organizations to come and give feedback around services. So that would be another place for public comment.
Okay. There was a question about why 100% versus 0%. There are the asterisks, by the way, the very last page, there's down the bottom, it does mention single asterisk is a unit cost estimated for operational purposes. Double asterisk is a unit cost not to exceed. That explains the asterisks. County 0% can be ARPA funding, federal funding. CDBG is federal. Could be a combination of state and federal. That's usually what the breakdown is. About the health department, at their June meeting, the Bucks County Board of Health voted on the revised regulations. They're required to do that through state law, Act 315. This is all the regulations that govern everything the health department does, from Ms. Darman mentioned mosquito spraying to restaurant inspections to environmental inspections of septic tanks and things like that. So it's everything they do. There are regulations that are approved by that board. We're just ratifying what they approved. And finally, the data regarding the workforce development. In order to make sure that the programs that workforce development is running to help make sure people find jobs, could be through CareerLink, a lot of times it is. Data is used to make sure that we're meeting the needs of the people who are coming in. What kind of qualifications do they need? How can we help them? Where are the openings in the job market? Where are there not as many openings? What kind of jobs are being treated as desirable for training, things like that. So that's all the data that's needed for that. Okay. All right. We're going to move forward with the consent agenda. With the minutes from July 6th meeting, are there any comments or questions on the minutes? No. Okay. Is there a motion to approve the minutes as presented?
So moved.
All in favor? Aye. With the consent agenda, I'm going to call a little bit of an audible. We do have John Ives here as well as Mr. and Ms. Heacock from Percy. This is talking about their first item, the agriculture preservation. And I know there's a little bit of information he wants to share about this particular farm that's being preserved. So give Mr. Ives a few minutes.
Thank you for having us here today. I'm happy and honored to introduce Jeff and Darlene Heacock, the farm owners. It's fantastic they're here today. Also in attendance is one of our Farmland Board, Ag Preservation Board members, Jim Nilsson. He's in attendance here too. The Heacock Farm. It is located in Bedminster Township along Sweetbriar Road, and this farm ranked number 5 on our 2021 ranking list. Next slide. The preservation will protect 30.29 acres. And this isn't the biggest farm we've preserved, but is very important. As you can see on the slide, it is connected and adjacent to an already preserved farm within our program. And in turn, that farm is connected to other preserved farms within our program. So in total, this cluster of farmland will create 315 acres plus, which is great, which is a great cluster of farmland altogether as one within Bedminster Township. It is also located within 5 other preserved farms that have been preserved through our program. Next slide. The preservation will protect 21 acres of cropland. It will also preserve scenic views within Bedminster Township and will also protect highly productive fertile soils. Next slide. Predominantly, the farm grows hay, corn, and soybeans, and will also help protect the farmstead buildings that exist on the site. Next slide. The total cost for the easement is $363,480, and it will have 2 co-grantees. One will be the county and one will be the state. And what we're asking from the county is to cover 50% of that cost at $181,740.
All right. Okay. Any comments or questions, Mr. Ives or the Hecox? No?
Thank you for doing this.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you.
Happy to partner with you. Appreciate, Mr. Ives, all your work and as well as the whole Preservation Board. So thank you for being here.
Yep.
All right.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, we have, so we have the consent agenda, which is items 1 through 19. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as is presented?
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you. All right, regular agenda. Item 20, Information Technology Civic Plus. Usually Mr. Regula, who's head of who is our Chief Information Officer, would do this presentation. He's out of town. And so our Director of Communications, Mr. Nagy's been working with him on this, so we'll let him present this information.
Thank you. Yes, I'm pinch hitting for John Regula today, so if the techno mumbo jumbo isn't making sense, I'm doing my best. I'll just blame him if it doesn't come across well. Just first, a little history on the website. Obviously, it was a major transition initiative. Probably the number one thing that our transition team insisted upon us getting right and getting done quickly. So we did start investigating that right away. Then obviously pandemic hit, and like so many places around the country, we were able to utilize some CARES funding to immediately address the needs of the website as opposed to waiting what would be regularly a fairly lengthy process. We may still be in that process were it not for that funding. So because of that, though, every municipality in the country, it seems, also took the CARES funding to update some of their technology and websites. So the company we used is a great company, Civic Plus, but at the time, some of the deliverables just weren't quite where we needed them to be. But because there was such an influx of new projects for them, we all learned together what we did all need and how we could best achieve them. So the reason that we weren't able to completely roll out every item on our checklist with the website on launch day was simply because it didn't exist with Civic Plus. I'm happy to say today is a major leap forward for user capabilities and back-end capabilities for our staff here at the county. Civic Gov is a new platform that Civic Plus has purchased and has brought under their umbrella. We had previously purchased a portal called Civic Optimize that did not quite function how we had hoped, so we have a $60,000 credit effectively for that. So the number you're looking at on the agenda should theoretically be about $60,000 more, but over the course of 5 years, we're getting a pretty good value for this. Civic Gov takes 8 different portals under the Civic Plus platform and coordinates them all together, essentially. What Civic Gov effectively does, works in 4 areas, permitting, planning and zoning, business licensing, code enforcement, and fire safety. Phase 1 of this program will be those first 3 items: permitting, planning, zoning, and business licensing. Essentially, this is a long way of saying this is an e-payment platform, so that we will now finally be able to accept universally across the board, with some exceptions based on different statutes of how we are to collect funds. We can basically, if there's a transaction as a citizen, you can now sign up on our website, create a profile once this is implemented, and you will be able to use that profile for every interaction you have here at the county where a transaction is involved. So if you reserve something at Parks and Rec or submit a permit application, you'll be able to use your same profile. So that's known as single sign-on. It's a major missing element that we've had here for, I mean, literally, decades. So this is a big leap forward for us, and the fact that we'll be able to process payments online. A few of those right out of the gate we'll be focusing on are planning and development. So that's stuff governed by Act 427. So you can submit plans and pay fees all within one action. From the treasurer's office, things like small games of chance and hotel use tax. Weights and measures, so we're talking every gas pump in the county, every scale in the county. So when you go to a deli, that scale essentially still needs to have a application process put through. So we're talking thousands of those items. And then thousands of restaurants too. We'll be working with the health department on those licensing processes. So that's phase 1. Phase 2, we continue to grow and learn. We can activate additional features like fire code enforcement, fire safety, and different licensing that isn't covered in phase 1. Let me see. So, and the other thing is different integrations will become available. So basically what that means is what we currently have access to, we'll be able to port over to this new platform. So that's 2 big items. Any historical data that we have as a county will be able to be transposed into this new system. And then our GIS system as well will be able to, I'm not sure if we're doing, this is where John Regula would come in handy. I'm not exactly sure the exact relationship there, but we'll be able to integrate it more smoothly within the Civic Plus platform. And right now we don't quite have that capability, but when we implement this, all of the things I just mentioned will be immediately accessible. So I'm sure I missed something, but we're essentially today activating a one-stop shop for the citizens of Bucks County to make transactions with the county and to fill out forms and to essentially not only for their benefit, but for the benefit of the staff to track those transactions in real time. Okay?
Thank you.
Questions? I'd be happy to try to answer them.
Any questions for, no?
Thank you.
No?
Thank
No?
you.
Okay. I know there's some row offices who are not going to be able to do this just because of state law.
When you're saying one-stop shopping, I don't think
Right.
Correct. There are rows that, just for the sake of how you're governed and how you're able to accept payments,
Yeah.
but hopefully, maybe down the road, who knows?
Yeah.
Right now, correct, you're right.
That's all out of our control. I think register wills, you're not able to do it either. Is that correct? Yeah. So, yeah. But yeah, this is certainly something maybe everybody's sort of used to or getting used to, the idea of buying stuff on their phone, just, Amazon shopping or doing whatever. You have your profile comes up, and then you enter what you do. And now that can happen, through this upgrade. And Park and Rec, I think, has been doing this already, right? You've kind of been paving the way. This is, yeah, month 7 in Park and Rec. So they were the ones that sort of, yeah, you're the guinea pigs. So we appreciate that. So, all right. So we have, if there are no comments or questions on that, number 20A, is there a motion to approve the Civic Plus contract?
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Personnel actions, if there are any comments or questions? If none, is there a motion to approve personnel actions?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Board appointments, one appointment, Mr. James Horan, Workforce Development. He's being reappointed. His term will end June 17th, 2025. Is there a motion to appoint Mr. Horan?
So moved.
Second?
All in favor? Aye. Other civics, we have Bucks County Audubon Society, $2,500. Bucks County Health Improvement Partnership, $2,500. Bucks for Kids, $3,000. Is there a motion to authorize those contributions?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Okay. Chief Operating Officer, Ms. McKevitt, I'm also going to ask you to.
That's good too. So if I could, I'm going to defer my comments and ask Evan Stone, our Planning Commission Executive Director, to join us to talk about attainable workforce housing through mixed-use development. It is a standards that our staff has been working on jointly with our Deputy Chief Operating Officer and Solicitor's Office to develop, to try and help our municipalities address our looming housing crisis.
Morning. Thank you. Yes, as Margie mentioned, we are definitely facing a attainable housing issue here in Bucks County. And I'm here this morning to talk about how attainable housing can hopefully be addressed through the use of mixed-use developments in our communities. So first, a couple of things just to kind of set the stage. What is attainable workforce housing? Attainable workforce housing is not low-income housing. There will always be a need for that. That remains. But attainable housing really is for those folks who make too much money that they don't qualify for a subsidy, but don't make enough money to compete in the open market for either rental or home ownership. Attainable housing and workforce housing is for our nurses, our police officers, our EMS folks, our teachers, who all have good jobs, make good money, but again, are having trouble meeting the open market in terms of their housing. Next slide, please. The second thing we want to talk about relative to this is the notion of mixed-use developments, and what is a mixed-use development and how does that help the problem. Mixed-use developments are just that. They are a mix of uses within one development. It can be within one building, it can be within one site. They generally contain residential, office, commercial, retail, or entertainment uses. They are highly walkable with interconnected walkways, and they are also bikeable. You can bicycle as well in these mixed-use developments. The other advantage to mixed-use developments is they save space, and they can be scaled to different sizes depending on the community. Next slide, please. So the housing shortage in Bucks County, and there is a housing shortage nationwide, affects roughly 1/3 of our population based on the demographics. According to the Federal Home Loan Mortgage Corporation, Freddie Mac, there's a nationwide housing shortage that is worsening, and it's not expected to abate anytime soon. In fact, they think it's going to take 10+ years for this problem to potentially correct itself. Some of the statistics they've supplied tell us that we are 3.8 million units needed in the housing units. There was a 52% decrease in supply from 2018 through 2020, and there are 72 million millennials entering the housing market, and those are folks aged 25 to 40. I have one of those at home who fits the demographic and is also facing the same issue. We all know that there were significant increases in the housing market costs, 12% just in the last year alone. The other thing Freddie Mac notes is that while folks have good jobs and they're making money, the inability to afford down payments becomes a major obstacle to home ownership, which is contributing to the problem. And as I said, the issue is particularly evident in Bucks County. Next slide. As part of our Bucks 2040 comprehensive plan work, and I should also just note with me today is Mike Rodig, our Director of Community Planning, who's been working on this with me. We put together a housing outlook looking at various statistics across the county. And what it told us, as I said, when we look at that third of our population, what we found was that in Upper Bucks, you needed a household income of $80,000 was needed to own at the median cost value of homes. And if you look at that graphic, that wasn't everywhere in Upper Bucks, that was only in those sections that are in yellow. And by household income, we mean that can either be at the individual or as the household combined together. In Central Bucks, that's $96,000. And in Lower Bucks, that's $78,000. And again, that's just to afford in those areas that are highlighted in yellow. So you begin to see the scope of the problem. As I said, my son is in that category. I'm living it with him right now. He qualified for a mortgage and yet can't afford to buy anything in Bucks County. He can't afford to live where he grew up. He can't afford to buy where he lives now. So what else does this tell us about the problem? Next slide, Randy. Where we also see this is with our employers. As part of the Bucks 2040 survey work that we've been doing, and we talk to our employers, the number one thing they've been telling us is they can't attract employees. They can't get employees. And one of the reasons they can't get these employees is because they can't live in Bucks County and they can't live near where they work. It's a major problem. The other thing that compounds is brain drain. The 2011 comprehensive plan noted this as well, so this is still an ongoing issue. And by brain drain, it's, again, if you use my son as an example perhaps, it's our young folks and older folks who have great education, offer great skills, but they can't afford to live here, so they go elsewhere. So what does mixed-use development look like? And how does it help us? We have a number of examples right here in the county. There's also some in Montgomery County next door. So I just wanted to show you a couple of different things and how they can help to solve the problem. Randy, next slide. So this is Dublin Town Center in Dublin Borough, just up the road on 313. And their mixed-use zoning permitted this development. And I call this a mixed-use within a mixed-use project. And it's a good example. It includes townhouses along the edge, so you have a nice density transition to the existing homes that are there, but it provides a smaller footprint house that's slightly more affordable. It also includes one building that has first floor retail and apartments above, so you have a mixed-use building in the mixed-use project. It also adaptively reuses existing buildings that were there and allows for the creation of new office space. Grandview Hospital, and if I can have the next slide, Randy, I'll walk you through just some of these examples. So on the left, you see a picture of the townhomes that were recently built. On the right, you see a picture of the mixed-use building. You can see the retail windows on the first floor and the apartments up above that hopefully will help to address the attainable housing issue. If I can have the next slide, Randy. Some more pictures from that development. This is the new Grandview Building. The building, which they now call the Square in the upper left-hand corner, has been adaptively reused, has a number of different uses within it, office, eatery, and I think there's one other I'm blanking on at the moment, but you can see the day I was there, folks out enjoying lunch on a nice sidewalk, activating the streetscape. This is all part of good mixed-use development. And the Dublin service station was saved and adaptively reused to create some nice open space, and there's a number of different vendors in there. Randy, the next slide, please. Another example is in New Britain Borough. We have the Butler Square Apartments. Again, on the first floor, we have retail and professional offices and apartments up above. Next slide, Randy, please. And bikes, lots of bikes. I need a couple more bike racks there. Again, mixed-use developments are very walkable, they're very bikeable, they promote these things. This particular development is located proximate to Del Valle University and the trails that are in the area. And so I think that leads to why you see the number of bikes that you do. And on the right side, you also see they have civic gathering area, public space that is often and should be part of mixed-use development. Next slide. In Northampton Township, we have Addisville Commons, first floor retail and space up above for apartments. And another successful example of a mixed-use development. And then lastly, Goodnose Corner in Newtown Township. This is a mixed-use building, eateries, retail on the first floor, apartments up above. In an ironic twist of fate, I became very good friends with the occupants of that apartment and remain friendly with them to this day. So another good use of mixed-use building. Last slide. So how can we help? So the Planning Commission has produced mixed-use performance standards. not a model ordinance per se, but rather performance standards that identify 16 principles that we think make for good mixed-use development that incorporates attainable housing. So you get innovative housing solutions specific to your community. We have 24 communities in the county that have adopted mixed-use ordinances of some kind or components thereof to help address the issue and to provide for this type of development. We've done an extensive analysis on these 24 different examples and put together and pulled together what we think are the brightest and best principles, and it's all geared towards success and attainability. And you can find those performance standards on our website under our community planning section. I'll end there.
Okay. Thank you, Evan. Thank you. Any comments or questions, Mr. Stone?
That's great, but we're happy to see it.
Yeah, certainly appreciate all the work. I'll talk more in my comment about the echoing the housing crisis problem, but I think this is a good use, certainly for, Bucks County does not have the ability to create zoning. In certain counties, certain states in the country, the counties do zoning. We obviously don't have that authority. No county in Pennsylvania does. And so what we can do is offer assistance, professional assistance, saving municipalities the time and energy and money that they would have to put out to have something like this done by their own engineers or by some outside consultant.
Precisely.
And that's something that we've done already with the alternative energy ordinance that we sent out about a year and a half ago, that outlined all kinds of ways people could, encourage more alternative energy use in their communities. And this, I think, is another one addressing, in both cases, problems that are problems now, and not always getting the focus they need to get, and going to become bigger problems in the future. So I appreciate all the work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else, Ms. McKevitt?
Yeah, I have a couple things, if you don't mind.
Go ahead, sure.
One, we are still reviewing the state budget. Some good news that came from Dr. Damsker in his weekly report was that the Medicaid rate has increased for the nursing home, I think it was 17.5% rate increase, which is translates to approximately $35 a day for resident, which could mean an additional, what is it, a little over $3 million in the budget. Did you want to speak about it, Dave?
Is that good? All right. Yeah, it's the first real increase that the state has given nursing homes Medicaid rates for about 11 years, I think, 10 or 11 years. That's why it seems like a big number, but if you break it down over a yearly increase, it's really not a whole lot. But we're thankful that they did it. It's very much needed, not just for Neshaminy Manor, but for all of the nursing homes, especially the ones that are pretty much fully Medicaid patients. So this will give us a little bit of wiggle room. It's difficult, I think, for all nursing homes to staff right now. It's not just us. So a lot of places have to pay people more to get staff, and this is going to help assist them, going forward. So this will go into effect in January of '23, and we'll hopefully have more information over the next couple of months. So when we do our budget, we can try to be as accurate as possible. But it's good news. Thank you.
And we'll continue to report out good and bad news about the state budget and how it affects our budget. I did want to make mention that the Career Link is moving. I believe, Kevin, August 4th and 5th, I think we're scheduled to move them, right? Okay, and they're moving to 4800 East Street Road in Trevose. I think that's in Ben Salem Township. It's a beautiful space that they'll be in temporarily until we build them a new home in 3 years. And then also, if you've been paying attention to the news, the Board of Elections office here in the admin building received an envelope through the U.S. mail on Monday. It did contain a suspicious substance. It's still being investigated. It was determined, however, by our staff that it was not hazardous, and it's still being investigated by the FBI. Gail Humphreys is monitoring that process along with our emergency management staff. I just want to thank that our security, Doylestown Fire Company, our hazmat team, fire marshal, our Central Bucks EMS, our 911, our county detectives, and General Services for their swift action in this matter. And I just want to make sure that the staff remembers when things like this happen, that there is a process to follow. Call 911 immediately. It shouldn't happen, but it is happening. So please review your policies and your procedures, but in situations like this, please call 911. And that concludes my report.
Okay, thank you. Solicitor's report, Mr. Khan.
Thank you, Commissioner. I'll begin by noting that the board had its standing executive session yesterday, which it conducted with staff and legal counsel to receive information and to discuss collective bargaining negotiations, today's personnel list, and a confidential investigation. And with that, Commissioner Harvey has asked me to spend the balance of my time for the report to share an important story that we've been waiting over 2 years to be able to share with the public. I'll begin by saying that part of what the commissioners asked me to do as their new solicitor was to apply some of my experience investigating and prosecuting corruption at the U.S. Attorney's Office in helping a new administration root out past bad practices, fraud, waste, abuse, et cetera. And this story really, I think, speaks very highly to this current administration's commitment to ethics and transparency, to making sure that there is good government in Bucks County at all levels, making sure that the right people are in the right jobs to do work the right way, which is the people's business. And significantly, the administration's unwillingness to be bullied by frivolous lawsuits. This is a matter that concerns some litigation that is in some ways still technically pending. And so for that reason, advised by our outside counsel, I will really confine my remarks to facts that are in the public record. They are in court filings. They are in publicly available reports maintained by the state. And with that, I will say that back in early 2020, when we all joined, I was a new solicitor. We had 2 new commissioners and a veteran commissioner newly stepping into the role of chair. We very quickly learned within just a few weeks that the State Ethics Commission was conducting an investigation into one of the state's former employees, a high-ranking IT executive, and that their investigation had brought them into Bucks County. I had received a request from an investigator to come into the administration building and to meet. I learned that there were interviews going on. And under the leadership of this administration, in particular Commissioner Marseglia, who was the chair, the administration pledged its full cooperation with that investigation. And that investigation was focused on a man by the name of Robert Ayers. And I'm going to read from a report that became available earlier this year. Mr. Ayers had been a public employee, a state employee, who broke the law, who violated the State Ethics Act sections 1103 and 1105. In particular, he abused his access as a high-ranking state IT executive to use confidential information to get contracts with county governments to provide IT services. He used state resources, property, equipment for the furtherance of private business. He did work during state or Commonwealth business hours for a private company known as Cyber Risk Services. He used state resources and property equipment to do that work. He was essentially moonlighting, but doing a lot of his moonlighting on state time and hiding that fact in a number of ways from his employers, failing to report the income he was getting on his required state ethics forms that have to be filed. And as the investigation turned to how did this person get access to get contracts with counties, including Bucks County, the investigation turned on how was it that Bucks County, before this administration came to be engaged in getting IT services with this person. And what began then was an internal investigation that we began with the strong cooperation of then County Controller Neil Doherty to get to the bottom of things. And what we learned was that at the center, in terms of the county involvement, in facilitating Mr. Ayers' ability to get work from the county, thousands of dollars of county dollars for IT services, was the person who was then the head of the county IT department, the chief information officer. And his name was Don Jacobs. And what the investigation showed was that despite protests from subordinates and despite concerns and directives from managers above him, Mr. Jacobs engaged in a number of practices that helped Mr. Ayers get the work that he got. So most of what I just told you is historical, or really all of it is historical in nature, and is really laid out in the ethics report that can be found at ethicsruling.pa.gov concerning the findings that were finally made in 2020 concerning Mr. Ayers, who admitted these facts, agreed to the financial sanctions that were imposed by the commission. But where we were in 2020 was trying to make sense of what had been going on and trying to make sure that we took appropriate steps, which included a meeting with Mr. Jacobs himself in early February of 2020. This was literally our now Chief Operating Officer, Margie McKevitt's first week on the job. In fact, she was serving in an interim capacity at the time. And Mr. Jacobs was given an opportunity to explain himself, to answer questions concerning a number of details about Mr. Ayers' actual work, his proposals, the concept of something called a finder's fee, which some folks might think of as a kickback that was discussed for awarding work. And aside from whatever had occurred prior to that date, what the investigation concluded was that Mr. Jacobs was dishonest. He was not truthful about his knowledge about what he knew, when he knew it, including things about whether or not he knew Mr. Ayers was moonlighting and was the actual provider of a private consulting firm that was nominally owned by Mr. Ayers' domestic companion, who was a person who had no cybersecurity experience and really just helped with the invoicing. To Ms. McKevitt's great credit, she informed Mr. Jacobs at that meeting he was being put on administrative leave pending the conclusion of the investigation. That investigation did continue. Mr. Jacobs had made claims that my predecessor and another attorney in the solicitor's office had approved of certain things and had been told of certain things, which when we spoke to them, they flatly denied. Subsequently, when this information was presented to the commissioners, they unanimously voted to terminate Mr. Jacobs. They also took steps to make sure that as the county looked to bring in new leadership in the IT department, that appropriate steps were being taken to deal with the long administration of Mr. Jacobs in that role. And also, as I mentioned, there were concerns being expressed to Mr. Jacobs by IT staff that were completely ignored. And the county took the opportunity to strengthen and update its Whistleblower Act to make sure that county employees have every opportunity to be protected, to be heard, to have alternatives to bring information forward. The county even enacted its first ever false claims ordinance, which further incentivized whistleblowers to come forward. And that was not the end of it. Mr. Jacobs responded by filing a lawsuit. And it can be frustrating for everyone. It can be frustrating for the public. It is certainly frustrating, I think, for the commissioners, for myself. And speaking as one of the defendants, along with Ms. McKevitt, there's, I think, nothing more than we would have loved to have done than to speak publicly and openly about this frivolous lawsuit that was brought against us. But on the advice of counsel, we have not done that until today. Mr. Jacobs claimed that the county and those of us that he sued had violated his constitutional rights his First and 14th Amendment rights. Section 1983 of Title 42, which protects due process, claimed that the reason he was fired was not because he was insubordinate and because he was dishonest, but that he was being punished for using FMLA leave. And probably the most ironic part of this all, he claimed that he was being punished because he was somehow a whistleblower. And it took over 2 years for this matter to reach the point where we're at now, which, although it can, as I said, it can be frustrating to not be able to comment on pending litigation. It's certainly not enjoyable to be sued. It's not the only time that those of us who work in this administration have been attacked or been targeted in an effort to advance some kind of cause. But the great thing about lawsuits is when they're actually brought, and they're brought into a courtroom, the truth comes out. And that's what courtrooms are about. Litigation is about getting to the truth. And when we had our opportunity to have a federal judge, because this literally was Mr. Jacobs made a federal case out of this, had an opportunity to review all of the evidence that came out, and it's called the light most favorable to the person who brought this case, found that there was absolutely not one shred, not one scintilla of evidence whatsoever. This was after depositions of myself, of Ms. McKevitt, of an attorney who worked in our department, of Mr. Jacobs, people who work for the county on county time, having to answer to these questions in support of this frivolous lawsuit. But what the judge found that there was absolutely no basis for this claim that anyone's constitutional rights were violated, that anyone was being punished for using family medical leave. And in fact, the judge also found, because this so-called whistleblower claim was a state law claim, and because there was really no business for this case to be in federal court, said he was not even going to address the whistleblower claim, which was really a state court claim. But what the judge did say in reviewing the FMLA claim was that he looked at what the county's letter terminating Mr. Jacobs said, which found that he had been dishonest and subordinate, violated a number of procedures, and said there was no evidence whatsoever that the county terminated him for any other reason. As I said, it is certainly not an enjoyable experience to be sued, to be targeted, to have one's professionalism, reputation, integrity questioned. But I do want to really credit these commissioners, because at no moment whatsoever, despite the fact that because their solicitor was being sued, the old maxim is a lawyer who represents himself as a fool for a client. So despite the fact that we were having to engage outside counsel in order to defend this suit, despite the fact that the time of county employees were being wasted having to answer the suit, at no point did they apply any pressure whatsoever to settle this case for even one nickel of taxpayer dollars, because they stood by the principles of right and wrong, and about doing the right thing and not being intimidated or bullied because of pressure by people who can find a lawyer to bring something into court. And I think in closing, I think in addition to speaking to their commitment to their employees and to what is right and wrong, I think it speaks volumes. When we look back at this investigation, I encourage people to read the state ethics report. It's about 80 pages. So there's a lot in there, and I'm just giving a very broad summary. And just piggybacking on Mr. Nagy's presentation, there is just so much to be learned here about the commitment here to making sure that the taxpayers are getting the full value of their resources at all levels of government, making sure that, again, they will not be intimidated by frivolous litigation. And finally, most significantly, that whistleblowers will be protected. They will be heard. It took some time, but the concerns of those who did not like what Mr. Jacobs was doing, they were heard. They were heard by this administration, and the commissioners did the right thing, and for that, I applaud them, and I thank them. And that concludes my report.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. Okay, we're up to the public comment period. Rich Walker?
I wanted to give everyone an update on the duplicate suits Commissioner Marsaglia filed against my wife, Jamie Walker, to hide emails from her second secret email address. Not only did they file 2 suits for the same thing, but required them to submit 352 pages to the court to say they screwed up. In addition, in those 352 pages, the county explains how they were confused and did not know how to properly file the suit. And because of this incompetency, they did not file the appeal in time. You missed the deadline. You waited until the last minute so you could delay this as long as possible, and now you are using taxpayer money to cover your mistakes again. Commissioner Harvey, how many malnourished children in Bucks County do you think you could have helped with the money you're wasting on these lawsuits to protect yourself? Next topic. Commissioner Harvey and Marsaglia have called my wife and Megan Brock conspiracy theorists. The problem with this is that they not have said what the conspiracy is. In your closing arguments today, you should take a stance and tell the community what you think their conspiracy is. Sit up straight, shoulders back, and declare what they are wrong about. For example, you could say Jamie Walker thinks Bucks County employee and both of your campaigns manager, Eric Nagy, wrote the August 23rd school guidance that affected 80,000 students in Bucks County. You could then say emphatically, there is not one piece of evidence she will ever find that shows Eric had any involvement in the August 23rd school guidance. Not one email, not one document, not one anything. Why would we want a self-proclaimed political operative who has 0 medical training to have any involvement in medical decisions? Especially when we have a board-certified infectious disease doctor and Dr. Damsker, who was right about everything medically all along. Do you know how ridiculous that sounds?
Thank you, Mr. Walker. Andy Warren? Oh, you left? Okay, thank you. Barbara Mills?
I'm Barbara Mills from Doylestown Borough. 2 things. First of all, I would like the commissioners to at some point address the aqua buying, perhaps buying the water sewer thing. I know that I attended the board meeting of the Water and Sewer Authority, and I know that they've agreed only to have aqua negotiate with aqua only, and it's just about sewers and not the water. But the water is our biggest asset, and I think people are upset, if it affects like Peace Valley. I know, at least from the Sewer and Water Authority, and for 50 years, and if aqua buys the water. Anyway, to me, it's a big mess that people are upset about, and it's in the papers, so if you could address that at some point. Second, and this is about you all as commissioners. I know you guys have been going through some stuff, and I want to let you know that I think you're doing a good job. And I pray for the enlightenment to soften the hearts of some of our county citizens. I pray that for our nation daily. I think if we quiet ourselves for a bit and listen to others without rancor, our nation could heal. So thank you for the job you're doing.
Thank you. Edward Mackhouse?
Hello, I'm Ed Mackhouse. I want to speak on election integrity. The movie 2,000 Mules showed how more than 1,000 mules in Philadelphia and Montgomery County stole the election by dropping off phony ballots in these drop boxes, which is justified by the hysteria over the vaccines and the viruses, which are a normal thing that people get to clear out their systems. So Josh Shapiro is the Attorney General, he's supposed to be responsible to have honest elections. There should not be mail-in ballots sent out to dead people when people are out of the thing. Person wants to no excuse mail-in ballot, they should apply for it. So they're serious about voting, they should apply for it. So they shouldn't be able to stuff mail-in ballots. And by this, they put $400 million they put in for these nonprofits to collect phony mail-in ballots for people who are dead that didn't return the mail-in ballot. So they can stuff them in these ballots by the mules. So there's overwhelming evidence. The previous Attorney General was indicted for fraud, and this Attorney General should be indicted for fraud if he doesn't convict or investigate and prosecute some of these people. And the only reason he's not prosecuting these mules is probably because he's involved in election fraud. And as AOC said, all this hysteria and the stuff is a small price to pay for taking over the government, where they have trillions of dollars to spend in bribing people, $10,000 each for the college loans and everything. So thank you for your having these videotapes so people can speak openly and publicly and not be misquoted. Thank you very
much. Lori Katz.
Hi again. I'm here this morning because of a problem discussed at the 7-6 meeting, and I came to present a solution. Mr. Khan informed us that the volume of FOIA requests has skyrocketed, quote, since 2020. Mrs. Marseglia said that the Open Records Officer is inundated with 10,000 pages a month of her emails to sort through, along with about the same amount from Mr. Harvey and Mr. DiGirolamo. Based on these assertions, it's pretty obvious that the Office of Open Records is understaffed. The county does not have unlimited funds, so where should the money come from? I don't know if you're aware of this, but the percentage of unemployment in Bucks County is at an all-time low. As of May, we're at 3.4%. The Federal Reserve considers 5% full employment. At the last meeting, there was an agenda item, number 18, called Workforce on Wheels, stemming out of the CareerLink program that's been serving Bucks County well for 20 years. The requested vehicle has a price tag of $400,000, not including staffing, maintenance, insurance, etc. I'm interested to know who found a need and what they based that on. Why pay $400,000 for a vehicle when we have the CareerLink program already meeting county residents' needs? Let's allocate the money to where citizens' needs are not being met. Please find a way to use the $400,000 to expand your workforce to take care of the open records requests. Thank you.
Beth Curcio. Apologize if I got that wrong.
No, you did right. Hi, I'm also new here. My name is Beth Curcio from Warminster, Pennsylvania. I'm the mother of 4 grown children, 6 grandchildren. And how do I pronounce your name, Markley? Or this is really directed at you. It was the first meeting I attended last time. And most of these people that are coming here, unless they're coming for an employer or they're nonprofit or something, are going on their own dime. We have to keep running out. We can't get parking. We get tickets, things like that. And you spent most of the time talking about, gaslighting us as conspiracy theorists. I graduated in 1977 from Jenkintown High School. My mother, who's a pure-blooded German, now she's 94, she doesn't really know where she is, was talking about all the things that are going on now. And I used to say to her, Mom, you are such a conspiracy theorist. And guess what? It's happening now. It's happening because we, the people, want you to realize that teamwork makes the dream work. But instead, you decide to sit up there and bore us to death with something that does not affect you suing soccer moms. It really does not. We are in it, and you had the nerve to say if you really cared about the children, I cared about my children. I did so much investigation, and I run a business, so it wasn't like I only stayed home and ate bonbons, okay? I did investigations on vaccines. Vax I read, I did everything, because we lost 2 babies, not my husband and I, but my brother, and now we just lost a grandbaby due to a vaccine injury, both at 4 months old. So that when you have to tell me that your opinion is that we should be getting them vaccinated and all this other crap, it's not a conspiracy theory that people are dying from vaccines, from childhood up. When I was raised, we got 1 vaccine. They now get 72 by the time they're 7 years old. I don't know if you're aware of that. When I asked the doctor when they were going to inject my first child, who's now 38, that is vaccine free, I said, what?
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate it. All right, Mara Whitson. Mara Whitson.
Good morning. I watched the meeting you held 2 weeks ago, and I was appalled at the behavior of our elected officials. First, I wanted to laugh at the irony of saying that it's unenjoyable to be sued. No kidding. Mr. Harvey, instead of directly addressing the questions being asked of you, you wasted your time opining on conspiracy theories. Nobody in this room, except for the commissioners, knows what is in these emails. It's concerning that you so desperately don't want them made public that you'd be willing to sue. Nixon hid 18.5 minutes of tape and resigned. Maybe you could learn from his mistakes. So I'm giving you the opportunity right now to answer the question. Who wrote the August 23rd, 2021 guidance? Not August 17th, August 23rd. There's no answer they would get which will satisfy them. That was your words. I will be satisfied when you provide the emails. End of story. You also made a joke about unvaccinated people dying, which I found disgusting. It's beneath someone in your position. You think it's funny when your unvaccinated constituents die? Ms. Marseglia, you don't have the right to withhold records that are inconvenient to provide. If names have to be redacted, redact them. You're embarrassing the county. Lastly, please explain to your taxpayers why you still have a vaccine requirement for county employees. There's no reason for this to continue to be in place. Thank you.
Megan Brock.
Just wanted to reiterate my first comment where I asked 2 questions. You called me a conspiracy theorist and other things over and over again. What is the conspiracy you're referencing? Number 2, who wrote the August 23rd guidance? Can you please go on the record in front of the public and say that? And I think if they can't say that, the people of Bucks County should be very concerned, because you know what, like Mara just said, you know what's in all of those emails. I don't. I'm just a mom who's asking for transparency. I'm a mom who's been following the law, who's in good faith given you the extensions that you wanted, trusting that you would act in good faith and give me the records that I was legally entitled to view. That's not what's happened. You've stated that people are mistrusting of the government. Well, trust is something that has to be earned. And when you call people conspiracy theorists for asking questions, when you use right to know law to prevent them from getting records, when you take them to court after trying to overturn a final determination from the Office of Open Records, those actions do not sow seeds of trust. I'm not here because I'm gaining anything. I've gained nothing from doing this. I've gained stress, emotional stress, I've gained financial stress, but I'm here because I recognize as an American citizen, I have a responsibility to be involved in the democratic process. Coming and giving a public comment, asking for open records are ways to engage with local government. I deserve answers. The county deserves answers. And if you won't answer these very basic questions, then we really do have some other questions as to why won't you give us that answer. Thank you.
Anna Darmond.
So I had started speaking here last year around this time because I had suspected that the guidance of August 23rd was politically motivated and had zero to do with safety or science. This was proved correct through the right to know emails. Now you insist you are not hiding anything, and not hiding anything by suing Mrs. Brock and Ms. Walker in an attempt to prevent the release of these emails that the OOR has said that they should be able to get. By the way, I wanted to let you know, Mr. Harvey, that Ms. Brock actually did go to Liberia as a pediatric nurse and help children, so she did spend time doing that. She is a woman who loves children. Since the last meeting, the OOR has granted them more emails. Are you going to take them to court over those? How much more money are you guys going to spend? Are you going to just not let anybody get any emails? Please stop pretending that this was not political. The whole situation here is political. I mean, Mr. Nagy was campaign manager. Mr. Kanye ran for DA in Philadelphia. Mrs. Marseglia, if you truly defended Dr. Damsker when the Doylestown Democrats had their Zoom meeting with you after they demanded that you fire him, and you have said that you defended him, then that's really, really great. I hope that's the case, because his position should be 100% absolutely free from any and all political pressure and influence. What happened when Allison Beam pressured you guys to mask children in August should never happen again. I want you to remember that Mrs. Walker went on national TV and praised you before all this happened. Yeah, you need to let us know what's in those emails. I hope you release them. Stop hiding. Thank you.
Okay, those are all the names on the public comment list. Just to address, Ms. Mills asked about Aqua and Peace Valley. This board did sign or enter into a conservation easement with Lake Galena, which does protect it in perpetuity, so it doesn't matter who owns what or who gets sold to what, or even if nothing gets sold. Lake Galena will remain a lake, and Peace Valley Park will remain a park for forever, essentially. In terms of whatever the situation is with Aqua and Bucks County Water and Sewer, that was, if you've read the newspaper articles, you basically know as much as we do. They are an independent authority, so they are looking into, the possibility. And they're going to be they're going to have some public hearings, which we think is a good idea. But ultimately, I believe that for myself, I pay my rates to Bucks County Water and Sewer, so if rates are going to go up, they're going to go up on me. So I have concerns not just as an elected official, but as a property owner, and also concern for the workers who are there. Those are my concerns. But we'll see what happens if Bucks County Water and Sewer has their discussions with Aqua. Okay. All right, moving on to Commissioner's comment. Mr. DiGirolamo.
Yeah, just a couple points real quick. Margie's report talked about the increase in Medicaid for our nursing home. And I think it's important, I try to bring this up all the time, the importance of Medicaid and the funding, not only here in Bucks County, but across the state of Pennsylvania. There are over 2 million people on Medicaid here in the state of Pennsylvania. I'm not quite sure how many in Bucks County. That's 60,000, 70,000 maybe, Rachel, somewhere in there. And these are the people, half the people who are insured by Medicaid are children. And if we can't make sure our children have health insurance, what good is government and society? The other part of that are people who are disabled, most of them severely disabled, some of them temporarily disabled where they have health insurance or are going through their disability. And third, a lot of people misunderstand that. A lot of people think Medicare pays for people who are in long-term care and nursing homes. It's not Medicare. It's Medicaid that picks up most of the cost. And again, Medicaid is based on income. So if you don't have the resources or the income to get into a nursing home and you need long-term care, it's Medicaid that comes and picks up the cost. And it is so important across Pennsylvania and here in Bucks County. And I think it's important that we keep our focus on that and remember that. That is actually life-saving. And the second issue I want to report real quick, we had our first meeting of the Opiate Settlement Trust on Monday. It was a virtual meeting. It was just kind of an organizational meeting, but it did come up during the meeting that Pennsylvania is expected to get their first payment August the 1st. And we're hoping within 30 days after we get our first payment here in Pennsylvania that the money will be dispersed to the counties. So I think that's very good. So we expect to have our money here in Bucks County, the first payment, sometime in August, which then our committee that we have set up can start working and make recommendations on how that money's being spent. Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it. Segley?
Just because when we all know that it's very hot out there, so I wanted to see if Audrey could tell us a little bit about what people can do if you get too much.
Thank you. We are formalizing a process that we had loosely in place last year for excessive heat days. We have an excessive heat warning that we've called for today and tomorrow, opening up several cooling centers throughout the county. The YMCA in Warminster and Fairless Hills, the Bristol Borough Senior Center, Marsville Senior Center, and Riegelsville Borough Town Hall have all agreed to open their doors for anybody who may need a place to go and cool off. They're open from 10 to 6 both days, and we'll be continuing to monitor. We're expecting heat indices in excess of 100 degrees for the next few days. Working with Dr. Damsker and the Area Agency on Aging and our housing department, we were able to come up with some locations that could provide some relief and support. We're asking folks to check on their elderly neighbors, make sure that they're okay and that they have the rations that they need to get through the next few days. Stay out of the heat as much as you're able to and enjoy the air conditioning.
Thank you. And just to be clear, I didn't have my mic on. That was Audrey Kenny, our Director of Emergency Management. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, just got information today, statistic this morning, I guess, that Bucks County, I guess the state has updated its information. About 70% of the county is fully vaccinated. So there is still clinics that the county is running for people who are interested. So with, certainly COVID hit me and my family about 3 weeks ago. And certainly I think the vaccine helped mitigate and keep everything pretty mild for the four of us, really. Ms. McKevitt already mentioned the idiotic act of a resident recently with mailing a letter to the Board of Elections, which is being dealt with by local law enforcement and FBI. So I appreciate the work of the Board of Election staff. It's a shame they have to go through that kind of abuse, but we've seen more and more of that over the past couple of years, unfortunately. People who are just doing the work of the county to make sure that people can vote, the elections are held properly. So it's, hopefully we don't have another one of those. And the issue of housing, since the recession, the Great Recession, 2007, 2008, 2009, the housing industry has not recovered nationwide because of that. Despite the low interest rates, there just is not the number of houses being built across the country as there needs to be anywhere. That is having an impact, as you heard from Mr. Stone, who was here earlier talking about the Planning Commission's efforts to try and make people more aware and help local communities who may be interested in looking at different kind of zoning that would create housing, as attainable housing, that is for people who are professionals, people who have graduated from college or coming out of the military, and they've got they've got the ability, they've got good jobs, but there just simply is not the ability to buy a house. And just referencing, it's that long of a decline in housing really hasn't been seen since the Great Depression, World War II, when you just didn't have houses being built for obvious reasons. We here in Bucks County know that William Levitt was one of the ones who kind of altered that situation, creating a new way of constructing houses that essentially has been copied and repeated all over the country. And Levittown houses were for steelworkers, and they were for veterans, and they were for people, teachers and other, small business owners, people who just wanted out of an apartment, they wanted a nice house, never thought they could own one. And now, Commissioner Marseglia lives in Levittown, one section of Levittown, and there are houses selling in her area that are $400,000. So even Levittown, which was really starting out for young families starting out, young professionals, even that is not affordable anymore here in Bucks County. This is a serious problem. It's not one that gets a lot of attention. And certainly the idea of the mixed use that you saw is not a perfect fit for all 54 municipalities. Some are already doing it, but it's definitely something that we have to focus on. Mr. Stone talked about, his son not being able to afford a home here in Bucks County, the county he grew up in where he wants to live. He's not the only person affected by that. And so for people whose children are getting into high school, college age, start asking yourself, are they going to be able to live here? For employers who might be paying their people a good wage, start thinking about, you might have trouble finding people to work because, as you heard, if somebody has to live 45 minutes away or an hour away, they're not going to be as inclined to take that job here in Bucks County. They might work somewhere else. And so this is something we do have to focus on. And it's going to take a lot of effort. It's not something we're going to fix certainly in the next year or so that we have in this office. Even if we're all reelected, it's not something we're going to fix in the next 5 years. But some work has to start, and there needs to be discussions and conversation about the fact that we have to be able to keep our generations here in this county. I was fortunate, the three of us all grew up in Bucks County. Our parents lived here, our grandparents lived here, in some cases further back, great-grandparents lived here, and we were able to stay here and buy a house here. The first house my wife and I bought, I think, was $98,000. That was in 1995. So that's unheard of anymore, and obviously it's a long time ago, I get that. But, even if you adjust for inflation, where's the young teacher and the young distribution coordinator that my wife was at the time? Where are they buying a house? And that's something we really have to consider. If we want our children to be able to live in the same county they grew up in, there's going to need to be some changes made in terms of how we approach housing in Bucks County. So thank you, everybody, for all their work, and I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.